Every morning before school, thousands of early 20th century parents engaged in an unremarkable routine. They opened the family medicine cabinet, pulled out a bottle of cough syrup, and measured out a spoonful for their children. The label on the glass bottle pictured a caring mother. The text promised a treatment that was soothing. The manufacturer guaranteed it was perfectly safe for household use. There was no reason to doubt the claim. This syrup sat casually on pharmacy shelves and bathroom counters, alongside everyday remedies like aspirin. The active chemical compound inside that soothing daily medicine was diacetyl morphine. The brand name printed on the front was Heroin. Licensed manufacturers produced the syrup, which appeared in peer-reviewed pediatric textbooks and the Journal of the American Medical Association as an endorsed treatment. Widespread addiction established a foothold in the home through the routine, unquestioned trust of the domestic medicine cabinet. By the late 1890s, the German pharmaceutical company Bayer operated some of the most respected chemical laboratories in the world. Their reputation relied on strict, methodical testing and close ties to the European medical establishment. In 1897, researchers inside those walls synthesized acetyl salicylic acid, a stable, effective pain reliever that Bayer would brand as aspirin. Within weeks, researchers walking those exact same hallways, using the same equipment, successfully synthesized a second compound, diacetyl morphine. Bayer's marketing department reviewed the data on this second drug, packaged it, and launched it globally under the trademarked name Heroin. Aspirin remains one of the most widely consumed medications on Earth. Heroin remains the exact opposite. The pill we reach for without thinking and the narcotic that destroys entire communities share an identical corporate origin. Institutional prestige offers zero immunity against catastrophic error. The man who brought heroin to market was Heinrich Dreser, the head of Bayer's pharmacological laboratory. Dreser was a serious, highly skilled scientist whose goal was to solve an urgent public health problem. In 1898, tuberculosis was a leading cause of death. The disease produced a violent, exhausting cough that could only be managed with morphine, which carried a severe and well-documented risk of addiction. A safer alternative was desperately needed. Dreser tested the new compound on animals, on Bayer employees, and reportedly on himself. Test subjects reported profound relief, noting that the drug made them feel powerful and fearless. The German word they used to describe the sensation was heroic, which inspired the commercial name. This chart shows how the error occurred. Dreser focused on respiratory sedation over a short-term observation window. He did not monitor his subjects long enough to track what happened weeks or months later, when physical dependency actually sets in. Because he observed no immediate signs of withdrawal during his trials, Dreser concluded the drug was non-addictive. He presented his findings to the medical community, and those findings were codified as fact. A scientist looking at flawed data is far more dangerous than one who knows nothing at all. He possessed the credentials, the institutional backing, and the absolute certainty that he was right. Bayer launched heroin commercially in 1898. To ensure rapid adoption, the corporation shipped massive quantities of free samples to physicians across Europe and the United States. Respected institutions repeated Bayer's claims without conducting independent long-term studies. The Journal of the American Medical Association and the Boston Medical and Surgical Journal both published favorable reports on the drug's safety. This uncritical acceptance allowed independent companies to license the compound for products like glycoheroin. The marketing literature specifically claims the compound is devoid of the toxic or depressing effects of other narcotics. It was explicitly prescribed for vulnerable patients, providing precise drop counts for children. Within 2 years of its introduction, Bayer was exporting tons of heroin to 23 different countries. The safeguard of medical peer review collapsed. Doctors did not verify the dependency data. They simply trusted the label printed by an authoritative corporation. It took only a few years for the clinical reality to catch up to the corporate data. Physicians noticed that patients prescribed heroin for temporary coughs were returning in distress, demanding more of the medication. They exhibited the classic pathology of opiate dependence. They required continuously larger doses to achieve the same relief and suffered severe physical withdrawal when their prescription ran out. By 1910, United States Opium Commissioner Hamilton Wright presented data to Congress showing that heroin addiction was climbing rapidly, and an illicit supply chain had already taken root in American cities. Bayer pushed back against these governmental warnings. Heinrich Dreser and the corporation dismissed the addiction reports, insisting that their own laboratory trials proved the drug's safety. But the volume of medical reports from hospitals and rural clinics soon became impossible to ignore. The physical evidence on the ward simply contradicted the paperwork in the lab. In 1913, Bayer quietly ceased production of heroin. They issued no press release, initiated no public recall, and offered no apology to the medical community. When an institution's absolute certainty shatters against physical reality, its first instinct is rarely accountability. It simply leaves the room and closes the door. The legal system rapidly stepped in to manage the fallout. In 1914, Congress passed the Heroin Narcotics Tax Act, bringing opiates under strict federal control. 10 years later, the United States passed the Anti-Heroin Act. The drug was officially removed from shelves, making its manufacture, importation, and medical use entirely illegal. Heinrich Dreser died in 1924, the exact same year the United States government criminalized his creation. Historical accounts suggest that in his final years, Dreser had developed a physical dependence on the very compound he had assured the world was non-addictive. Dreser followed his own flawed data until it eventually consumed him. In 1996, Purdue Pharma introduced an extended-release oxycodone formulation called OxyContin. They marketed this powerful opioid to physicians with a clear, repetitive message. The risk of addiction was less than 1%. Purdue leaned on a novel pharmacological claim, the drug's time-release coating, to generate the exact same false certainty that Bayer relied on a century prior. Physicians trusted the manufacturer's data. They prescribed the medication widely, sparking an overdose crisis that has claimed over 500,000 lives since 1999. The chemical composition changes, the marketing language updates, but the underlying mechanics remain identical: a potent compound, a respected corporation, a safety profile unsupported by long-term evidence, and an uncritical medical establishment. The next time a massive institution promises you absolute safety, you must look closely at the long-term data, because there was a time when a mother, a child, and a doctor all placed their absolute faith in a bottle of heroin.